Sister-in-law's shocking scheme to ruin my pregnancy announcement. If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's this: not all family is worth keeping. Some people thrive on drama, jealousy, and chaos, and no matter how much you try to keep the peace, they will always find a way to make your life miserable. For years, my sister-in-law Kayla did everything she could to humiliate me. She insulted me, sabotaged family events, and constantly tried to turn my husband against me. But the thing about people like her, eventually they go too far. And when Kayla finally crossed the line, she didn't just ruin herself. She ended up in jail and lost everything. I met my husband, Harry, 8 years ago. From the moment we started dating, his sister Kayla made it her personal mission to make me miserable. At first, it was subtle digs. She'd make backhanded compliments like, "Oh, you're actually pretty. I thought Harry only dated supermodels before you." Or she'd bring up his exes at every possible moment. "Remember that time you took Megan to Paris? That was so romantic. Oh, wait, you guys haven't gone, right?" I laughed it off at first, assuming she was just one of those overprotective sisters who struggled with change. But over time, it became clear that Kayla wasn't just being protective. She was territorial. She saw every woman in Harry's life as competition. And for some reason, I was her biggest threat. When Harry proposed to me, I expected Kayla to be bitter. But I didn't expect her to act like we had just announced his funeral. At our engagement party, she sulked in the corner the entire time. She refused to say congratulations. She rolled her eyes whenever people gushed about the wedding. And when someone asked her if she was excited for us, she snapped. "I don't know why we're all pretending this is going to last." The room went silent. Harry pulled her aside and told her to get her act together or leave. She fake apologized, but from that moment on, I knew she was going to do everything in her power to ruin my wedding. By the time our wedding day arrived, Kayla had completely lost it. She showed up in a black funeral dress, complete with a veil. When someone asked her why she was dressed like she was in mourning, she shrugged dramatically and said, "Because today, I lose my brother." That was the final straw for Harry's parents. They dragged her outside, told her she was an embarrassment to the family, and forced her to leave before the ceremony even started. For once, I thought maybe that would be the end of her drama. But Kayla? She wasn't done with me yet. Not by a long shot. After years of passive-aggressive comments, backhanded compliments, and full-blown tantrums, I thought nothing Kayla did could surprise me anymore. I was wrong. Because when she realized that her snide remarks and nasty attitude weren't breaking us apart, she escalated. And on my wedding day, she pulled one last desperate stunt. But this time, it backfired spectacularly. I should have known something was off the moment Kayla arrived. While all the other bridesmaids wore soft pastel colors, Kayla strutted in wearing a floor-length black gown, a lace veil covering her face like she was attending a funeral. At first, I thought maybe she was just making a fashion statement, until I overheard one of my husband's cousins ask her about it. "Oh, are you in the wedding party?" Kayla let out a dramatic sigh and placed a hand over her chest. "No, I'm here to mourn." The cousin blinked. "Mourn what?" Kayla looked directly at me and said, "The loss of my brother." I felt my stomach drop. She had officially lost it. Things only got worse from there. During the ceremony, Kayla sat in the front row, sighing dramatically every 5 minutes. At one point, while the officiant was speaking, she whispered loud enough for half the room to hear, "Harry, it's not too late to walk away." Then, when we were exchanging vows, she pretended to wipe away tears, letting out a small sob. I had to physically stop myself from laughing, because at that point, I wasn't even angry. I was just embarrassed for her. The final straw came during the reception. While we were taking photos with our families, my mother-in-law pulled me aside. She looked furious. "We're kicking Kayla out." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Apparently, she had been making snide remarks about me all night, telling guests that Harry had made a mistake and that our marriage wouldn't last. She even had the audacity to say, "Give it 2 years, and I bet he'll be back with Megan." Megan was his ex-girlfriend from college, the one Kayla had always worshipped. At that moment, my father-in-law had heard enough. He walked up to Kayla, grabbed her by the arm, and dragged her outside. The entire venue went dead silent as she screamed, I'm just being honest. You can't kick me out for that." My father-in-law turned to her, his voice low but firm. "Watch me." And just like that, she was gone, kicked out of her own brother's wedding by her own parents. And for the first time in years, Harry didn't defend her. He just watched in silence, because even he had finally had enough. With Kayla gone, the rest of the wedding was perfect. I laughed. I danced. I celebrated the start of my new life with Harry. And for a while, things seemed normal. Kayla went no contact for a while, licking her wounds and pretending we didn't exist. But people like her, they don't just fade into the background. And years later, when I least expected it, she came back, and she almost destroyed everything. For years after our wedding, Kayla was out of our lives. No phone calls, no holiday visits, no passive-aggressive remarks lurking in the background. And honestly, it was peaceful. I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally moved on. But then, after years of silence, she suddenly came back. And this time, she nearly tore our family apart. Kayla's return didn't happen out of nowhere. 2 years after our wedding, she suffered a miscarriage. And while I wouldn't wish that kind of pain on anyone, she used it as a way back into our lives. Harry, being the forgiving person he was, decided it was time to let her back in. "She's grieving," he told me. Maybe this changed her. I wasn't so sure, but against my better judgment, I agreed to let her meet our son. And for a while, it actually seemed okay. At first, Kayla acted like the perfect aunt. She showered our son with gifts, took tons of pictures, and even started showing up for family dinners. Harry was thrilled. "See," he said one night, "she's really trying." And I wanted to believe it. I really did. But something felt off. Because every time Kayla was around, she made sure to remind me of her place in Harry's life. I was the first woman Harry ever loved. "Remember when we used to do everything together, Harry? It's so weird seeing my little brother as a husband. You're still the same guy I grew up with." She didn't outright attack me, but her words were always just enough to make me uncomfortable. It was like she wanted to erase my role in Harry's life, to make sure that everyone knew she still came first. And then, she went too far. One evening, we were at my in-laws' house for dinner. Kayla was holding our son, playing with him, when out of nowhere, she turned to Harry and asked, "Are you sure he's yours?" The room went dead silent. Harry's jaw clenched. "What did you just say?" Kayla shrugged. "I mean, it's just a little weird, right? He doesn't look anything like you." My heart dropped. She was doing it on purpose. She wanted to plant doubt, to make Harry question our marriage, to make him wonder if I had cheated on him. And for the first time in our entire relationship, Harry lost it on her. "Get out," Harry said, his voice low and dangerous. Kayla blinked. "What?" "Get out." She let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, come on, Harry. You know I was joking." But Harry wasn't laughing. He was done. "I have let you get away with so much. I ignored every insult, every time you disrespected my wife. I tried to give you another chance. But this is unforgivable." Kayla's face fell. "Harry, leave, and don't ever come near my family again." And just like that, she was cut off completely. I thought that was the end of it, but I should have known. Kayla wasn't done with me yet. She had one last trick up her sleeve, and this time, she nearly landed herself in prison. Cutting off Kayla should have been the end of it. After Harry finally told her to stay away, I thought she would just disappear from our lives. But people like Kayla, they don't walk away quietly. They come back. They scheme. They make one last desperate attempt to win. And Kayla? She almost got away with murder. A year after cutting her off, things were finally peaceful. Harry and I were expecting our second child, and our son had just turned 4 years old. So, we decided to throw a birthday party for him. Everything was perfect. Balloons, cake, family, and friends. It was supposed to be a happy day. Then, out of nowhere, Kayla showed up, uninvited. She walked in holding a wrapped gift, her expression a perfect mask of remorse. "I know I messed up," she said softly. "I just want to make things right." Harry stiffened but didn't say anything. I glanced at his parents, who gave me a small nod, as if saying, "Let's not make a scene." So, against my better judgment, I let her stay. That was my biggest mistake. At some point during the party, Kayla pulled me aside. "Hey," she said with a smile, "I made something special for you. It's an old family recipe." She handed me a small plate of food, a personal serving she had prepared just for me. Something felt off, but I didn't want to cause a scene. I was about to take a bite, when suddenly, her husband walked by and grabbed it off my plate. "Oh, nice. I love this dish." He took a huge bite before Kayla could stop him. Her face turned ghostly white. Seconds later, he collapsed. The paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing her husband to the hospital. By the time we got there, doctors confirmed he had been poisoned. And the only reason he survived? He hadn't eaten enough to be fatal. But when they ran tests on what was left of the dish, the results were undeniable. Kayla had laced it with a toxic herb known to cause severe illness, one that could have led to pregnancy complications. She hadn't just wanted to make me sick. She had wanted me to lose my baby. Harry and I pressed charges immediately. The police got a warrant for her phone records, and what they found was sickening. Messages to a friend, saying, "She doesn't deserve to have another kid. Maybe she'll have a little accident. I just want her to suffer." Kayla tried to deny everything. She claimed she had no idea how the poison got into the dish. She even tried to blame me, saying I was setting her up. But in the end, the evidence was overwhelming. She was arrested on the spot, and when her husband, the man she poisoned by accident, found out, he filed for divorce the very next day. Kayla went from being the family favorite to a disgrace. Her parents refused to defend her. Her husband left her and took everything. She was facing jail time, and suddenly, she had no one on her side. For years, she had made my life a nightmare. But now, she had destroyed herself, and I didn't feel an ounce of guilt, because she deserved every bit of what was coming. Watching Kayla's world crumble should have felt like revenge. But honestly, it just felt like justice. For years, she had made my life a living hell. And now, she was finally facing the consequences of her actions. Kayla fought hard to avoid jail time. She hired a lawyer, tried to plead insanity, and even blamed pregnancy hormones. Despite not being pregnant, "It was just a mistake," she sobbed in court. "I never meant to hurt anyone." But the judge wasn't buying it. Not after they read the messages from her phone. Not after her own husband testified against her. Not after they saw the security footage of her handing me the poisoned food, watching carefully as I was about to eat it. She knew exactly what she was doing. And now, she was going to pay for it. After weeks of legal battles, the judge finally handed down the verdict. Kayla was found guilty of reckless endangerment and attempted poisoning. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Not life, not forever, but enough. Enough for her to sit in a cell and think about everything she had done. Enough for her to realize that she had thrown away her entire life over her own jealousy. And honestly, that was satisfying enough for me. The day after the verdict, Kayla's husband filed for full custody of their daughter. He wanted nothing to do with her anymore. And when the court granted him sole custody, Kayla lost it. "You can't do this to me," she screamed in the courtroom. "This isn't fair." But no one felt bad for her, because she had done it to herself. She had spent years destroying everyone around her. And now, she was the one left with nothing. For so long, Kayla had been the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. But now, her own parents refused to visit her in prison. Her friends abandoned her. Her ex-husband wanted nothing to do with her. And Harry? He didn't even say her name anymore. Because to us, she wasn't family anymore. A few months into her sentence, Kayla sent Harry a letter. He debated throwing it away without opening it. But curiosity got the best of him. Inside, it was pages of rambling excuses. "I was just jealous of losing you. I wasn't thinking straight. I never meant to hurt Rebecca." And at the very end, a pathetic attempt at guilt-tripping him. "You're my brother. I love you. Please don't abandon me." Harry read it once. Then he shredded it into tiny pieces and threw it away. Because at this point, Kayla was nothing more than a bad memory. For the first time in years, life finally felt peaceful. No more passive-aggressive insults. No more sabotage attempts. No more constant drama. Kayla was gone. And honestly, we never needed her to come back. A few months after Kayla was sentenced, Harry and I welcomed our second child into the world. The hospital room was filled with love, his parents, my family, and our close friends. But one person was missing, and for the first time, her absence didn't hurt. In fact, it felt like a relief. There was no jealous sister-in-law whispering poison into our ears. No manipulation or fake smiles. No feeling like I was constantly being watched, judged, or belittled. Just happiness. And that's when I realized something. Kayla's absence had improved our lives more than her presence ever had. Ironically, the person who had once been married to Kayla ended up being a real part of our lives. After the divorce, he remained close to Harry's parents. He wanted his daughter to grow up around good influences, so we saw him and his little girl often. He even met someone new, a wonderful woman who treated him with respect. And when they get engaged, we celebrated with them the way a family should. Because, unlike Kayla, he actually deserved it. For years, we didn't hear a single word from Kayla. Then, one day, Harry got an email from her. She had been released early for good behavior and wanted to meet up. She said she had changed. That prison had humbled her. That she wanted to make things right. Harry never responded. He didn't need to, because he had already made his decision years ago. Kayla had made her own choices, and she had to live with them, without us. For years, Kayla was the storm that constantly hovered over our lives. She caused pain, chaos, and destruction wherever she went. But when the storm finally passed, we were happier than ever. She was never the loss she thought she was. And at the end of the day, cutting off a toxic family isn't a betrayal. It's self-defense. And I'll never regret choosing peace over her.